What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and are you ready to get into them lunar shenanigans? You know what? It kind of starts off a bit of a mixed bag these first few days. We get to the moon that'll eventually enter into its domicile of Cancer, so that'll kind of help, and the moon at least will have some tools to deal with the trickiness. But then we get into the new moon phase. We'll be starting a new lunar cycle off here, and then I find it's where we get from that transition from the moon in Leo to the moon in Virgo, where there's some nice little pockets there where the moon's having some harmonious conversation. So, but it's just like bearing through the beginning of this week. But we'll get into all that here in a moment. But if you're new here, again, my name is Justin. And one of the things that I do in this channel is talk about the lunar shenanigans. It just talks about what the lunar astrology, what sign the moon's in, what phase it's in, when it happens to go void of course, and when the aspects are reaching its peak there. And I'm going to be covering the week of July 22nd through the 28th, 2025. And let's go ahead and actually let's go ahead and get into this thing here. So we have on our first day, on a Mars day, the 22nd of July, we have the moon is still in a waning crescent phase here, and is going to start off in, depending on what time zone you're in, going to start off entering into its domicile of Cancer, and that's going to happen at about 5:26 a.m., and that'll be Pacific time. Now, when you have, as you see in the chart over here, is the moon just freshly entering home, just stepping in. Big Papa's here. The sun's about to leave, which whatever. We didn't want you here anyway. No, but when you have a celestial body in its domicile, that just means that this is the place or the sign that the planet is able to express itself most efficiently. It has all the resources that it needs. So that sort of feeling, nurturing, intuitive qualities of the moon really work well in Cancer. Cancer is a cardinal water sign. They're receptive or yin in nature. So this is, I find the moon in Cancer really is just a great time to dip into the body to just see how things are feeling, in you, and how things are feeling around you. Because Cancer is a very intuitive energy, and one that can really kind of feel the ebbs and flows around that, and that's what really gives it that nurturing quality as well, because it can even sense that when others are feeling off there. So if you've been noticing, maybe you got some people who are in some Mercury perfection years, and maybe this retrograde has been slapping. I know it's been a tricky one for me, but this could be where you can help them out. The moon, I think, is again very intuitive. Really, just knows how to do that in Cancer. So just to get a really good, just kind of feel into yourself, sensing where you've been, maybe because Cancer is thinking about it as the source of emotions, the initial feeling. It can be a bit of a reactive energy sometimes, and especially having that pressure of Saturn on it, which is where we start off with that as we're getting into that, because as you see here, right after the moon enters into that, is going to form an aspect of a square with Saturn that's retrograde, and the squares can be a bit of tension, so there may be feeling this sense of the heaviness of Saturn. Maybe you've noticed a bit of delays that have been going on there. You've been trying to get things, but it seems like you take 2 steps forward and 10 steps back, with Saturn. So maybe there's some weight of some kind of responsibilities and things that maybe has been kind of waning on your, or just kind of depleting the energies as of late. This one may be just kind of starting off, just taking some time to just to one with this aspect. I would say to just make sure to take some downtime for yourself, take some time to get some good rest, whatever that might look like for you. Make sure you're just getting some good sleep, not to like really kind of overwork yourself throughout the day. Be mindful of just like impatience getting the best of us, because then that leads again to exacerbating the problem. Now, the reason I put this energy in more of a kind of a neutral field, because the moon will later on that day form a conjunction with Big Papa, who's doing well in Cancer. The fact that the moon is the moon is co-present with Jupiter here, that is already kind of alleviating some of the Saturnian influence, but it doesn't take away from the fact that there may still be things pressing down. But this could be when that moon reaches that kind of peak with that conjunction, that I find this is like a hindsight sort of energy. So let's say if you've been kind of going through it throughout the day, kind of getting like oh, this is why I needed to get through this, or some sort of insight, some sort of like epiphany maybe coming through this, or figuring out a way of like, what, there's been this pressure, and I don't want this is like a make or break kind of day. It's like either I don't want to continue this and want to break the cycle, or maybe we might fold under the pressure a little bit, because getting into the next one here, we have a Mercury day. This is the 23rd of July. The moon's now settling into Cancer, kind of well into its home. And now we're getting into the where we form a sextile with Mars. And where it's a positive aspect with the sextile, that's when the planets are 60 degrees apart here, as you see, between Cancer and Virgo. And it can be one that can promote growth and collaboration, creative opportunities, creative thinking. But it is one with the sextile that you have to take that initiative in order to make these things happen. So, that's where I was saying with that Jupiter conjunction, this could be where it's like, okay, yeah, maybe we had like a bit of a rough day, for whatever reason that might be. But, instead of focusing on the things that are outside of our control, what can I control to maybe improve whatever current problem or situation that I may be, or that we may be facing at that time. And that's why I kind of put this one as a bit of a neutral color too, because it's still a malefic, when we're talking about with Mars here. So even with that kind of that nice aspect with Virgo, this could be a time where we could be feeling like, okay, you know what, I have some ideas, I'm feeling motivated, I want to change some things. Or that Mars and Virgo, like, there's never going to be a perfect situation for this, why even bother, why even try, this situation. It's just kind of that Virgo nitpicking and figuring or seeing what's not working as opposed to seeing what is working. That sort of counterintuitive energy that is not normal of Virgo. Virgo is normally a very efficient sign, so that would be something that I would just kind of pay attention to and be kind to yourself over these next few days. I mean, just in general, but especially over these next few days, because we are in the kind of last aspects of this lunar cycle, and kind of take a moment and reflect on this. How has this lunar month been from you? When we had started from that new moon, just grabbing my ephemeris one here. When we started from that new moon, let me see when that date was. I should have this stuff offhand here. But when we started the new moon back in... Oh, man, now I won't be able to find it. Oh, there we go. Back on the 25th. When we started it back there on the 25th of June, what has been going on since this month? Was this your birthday season? Was a lot going on there? Oh, and speaking of, if you happen to have your son in Leo, happy birthday season, by the way. Hope you're kicking it off right. Great time if you want to see what's going on for you for the year, what kind of transits, who's going to be the Time Lord for you for the year. Maybe it's the moon. Down in the description box, there's a link for the book of consultation with me. But yeah, this is one where, think about what's happened over this last month and how you want to move going forward. I think, again, these next couple of days, I think, are really going to kind of shape how we get moving. And which is kind of nice there, because that leads us to a Jupiter day, which is the 24th of July. And we have the moon that's getting ready to move from Cancer into Leo, and that's going to happen at about 8:29 a.m. And again, that's Pacific time. And now when you think about the moon the moon in Leo, now we're moving under the auspices of the sun, and the sun's now just freshly entered into Leo here too. And Leo is that fixed fire. They're active or yang in nature. And I find with Leo is about fueling the things that promote that soul growth, that help us to shine the brightest, that help us express us in our, express that true will. So this would be one where you're taking that energy over these last couple of days. Where have we maybe been feeling like our shine has been dulled? And now we can take it into this new moon here in Leo that's going to happen a few hours later at about 12:11 p.m. and it's going to be happening at about 2 degrees and 8 minutes of Leo. Oh, and something to pay attention to, I want to kind of backtrack a little bit. Something to pay attention to, if you do happen to have a lot of cardinal placements, for example, then this moon, while the moon's in Cancer, this may be activating a lot of points for you, especially if you happen to have a lot of Libra, Aries, Cancer, or Capricorn. Those would be ones where you're going to be feeling more kind of tenser aspects, so pay attention to that. But water signs, Scorpio, Pisces, even Virgo Leo and Taurus. This could be some flow and opportunities in here, so just something to pay attention to that when we're getting into Leo. Now we're fixing into that, again, that fixed modality. So if you have a lot of Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, or Aquarius, this may be a more kind of an active time for you there, maybe feeling a bit more kind of challenges maybe that it might be coming up there, a need to get some things moving there. But you know, this would be a great time with this new moon. Like I said, you're looking at the challenges. You maybe be, because it starts off when the moon enters there, it forms a trine with Saturn now. And so now it's still feeling that weight of Saturn, but now it can feel more bearable. It's like, okay, this is what I want to initiate, that sort of Saturn in Aries. And it's going to take some time with Saturn in Aries. So it's like, how can I, with this moon, sun conjunction in Leo, how do I make it so that I'm enjoying the process, so that I can make this thing as smooth as possible with this, you know, and how to, you know, so this would be a great time, I think, to, again, tune in, meditate on any sort of like challenges that you're going through. And this could be where that moon, when we get to that new moon, you could be feeling that new sense of inspiration there. You know, but I still put this in a bit of a neutral color here just because, again, it's Saturn. We're still doing some work there, but it could be work that's more manageable considering that it's a trine. Now, as we move into Venus Day, the 25th of July, now the moon's starting to smile at us. We're getting to that waxing phase, and the moon's going to form a conjunction with Mercury, who's retrograde right now. And this could be just we're getting settled into the retrograde Mercury, starting to finally move back away from that 15-degree mark. And this could be just an invitation with the conjunction. This is a fusion of energies. So the moon is really kind of feeling this retrograde. How have you been moving with the, maybe a bit of the changes, a bit of the maybe wrenches or the bit of the left turns that you may have to take in with what Mercury shenanigans can bring. But this can be a time where you're really starting to just kind of feel, where hopefully we're all starting to feel back in the groove of this thing, and just really kind of feel how this retrograde has been managing. You know, just even thinking when we're just reflecting over the lunar cycle, we had 2 retrogrades that happened while we were under this, Cancer lunation. So now, with this Mercury retrograde here, again, this could be a great time to just kind of get more regulated in this, how to move forward with that. I'll tell you what, just for an example, I have, I'm in, Mercury's my time lord of the year, and it's stationed retrograde right on my Jupiter placement, and is going to be highlighting about 2 points, 2 points and 3 planets. So it's a very active retrograde for me. And I almost went retrograde right there with Mercury. But now, it's been one where it's like, okay, we got that was that. Now let's get back where you were feeling some sense of consistency. Again, that's another thing I think's a good word for Leo. So, great time to just get your energies back on track there with that. And because look at that, now we're getting some green. Now on a Saturn day, the 26th of July, the moon is going to first, before it moves into Virgo, is going to form a sextile with Venus. And like I said, again, the sextiles are that harmonious aspect, where there's an opportunity for collaboration and things. So if you've been, we've been maybe been a bit of a tough week kind of starting things off. We've seen the challenges that have been displayed against us. So now this could be where Venus in Gemini could be where we're either talking with different people, finding, maybe like different mentors, maybe different friends, something, different someones to help you with whatever situation that you're doing, to talk about this thing, to figure out what a game plan can be. Or this could be looking up different videos. That Venus in Gemini, I think, is a very creative thinker. It could be great at improving in things, and figuring out different stuff there. You may talk with someone and they mention something that pulls just like the wildest idea, for you to tackle a situation. So just something I think to pay attention to kind of help alleviate some of these problems, because Venus, consider too, Venus is the lesser benefic, so still is bringing beneficence here. And then after it forms that aspect, this moon moves from Leo into Virgo at about 1:56 p.m. And I like a moon in Virgo because now again we've taken that creative, those ideas that we've gotten maybe from that sextile, and now we're putting it into application with the moon in Virgo. It's an efficient energy. It's a problem-solving energy. It's looking at the details, getting things in order, and getting the work done with the moon in Virgo. So and I think that's going to be something that, even though the moon is kind of co-present here with Mars, is not to say that the challenge isn't going anywhere, but now there's the pressure to get the work done here. I think now that the moon is co-present with Mars, but that energy's still building. But first, before it gets there, on a Sunday, on the 27th of July, the moon, we're still in the waxing crescent phase, things of that light's still building. And now we're forming a sextile with Big Papa. So the moon is just having some lovely conversations, real light conversations with the benefics over these next couple of days here. And so now with this happening with Jupiter, this could be, we had this conversation, we're feeling inspired, we're feeling enlightened, and now we're ready to put this, just to keep that motivation going, to allow that bigness to continue to fill ourselves up. We're expanding here. The receptacle is expanding with that Jupiter in Cancer there. And now Jupiter even too is in reception with the moon. The moon's able to witness Jupiter being in this sign here. So I think it just these next couple, Saturday and Sunday, let that be a day of just to try to do some niceness, do some things some problem solving, some time to grow out of a situation, to turn challenges into triumphs, But then we end up on a moon day here, this last day, the 28th of July. We have starting off, the moon is going to form that conjunction with Mars. And so when we're thinking about a conjunction, that's that fusion of energy. And this would be one where we've had all of this build up. So this could be where things are just kind of reaching a fever pitch. I would just be mindful of any sort of especially if you've been kind of overworking yourself with Mars in, with this Virgo energy, just be making sure to just take some rest, making sure that you're eating, because I find maybe with Virgo, it may want to go for the more kind of maybe a processed thing, or like a frozen meal, as opposed to cooking for oneself, or to do something like fast food, or do something kind of snacky, or maybe whatever that is. But I would say with this one, just making sure that we're getting enough sleep, that we're eating healthy, that we're just taking care of the body. Just kind of dip in, if you've been in the weeds of it, it's just okay, how am I feeling? How are things going? Because then right after that conjunction with Mars, thankfully, the moon forms a square with Venus. And even though the squares are a little bit a tougher aspect, it's still with the benefic. And so that's still really nice there. So just again, it could just be just kind of, now Venus is kind of tuned back into the mind, ooh, you know what? My brain has been working a lot. Let me go ahead and just do something to get some fresh air, possibly. Let me go out and just move the body a little bit. Let's go maybe talk with some friends, do something kind of light there to kind of switch things up a little bit. And then after, kind of later that evening, the moon will move into the sign of Libra. And that'll happen at about 10:44 p.m. Pacific time. And so this is where, this has been a very interesting kind of week, the sort of energies that we've been kind of moving through here. And I think I'll go ahead and switch back over. But when you have the moon in Libra, this is a time where it's okay, we've weighed the pros and cons of things, we've gone through this energy, we felt the fluctuations, and so now, because I don't think, I think sometimes where, Libra gets that thing of indecisiveness, it's not because they don't know what to do. They know their options, but it's just I think that there is they can think about the potential of all the ways that this can go great and how it cannot go great. I think, Libra has a very strong mind. That's where thoughts first happen with Libra. And this would be one, again, just kind of going back there real quick, just talking about if we have any placements in Virgo. While the moon's going through Virgo, that may be an active time for mutable placements. That's Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, and Gemini. And then with this Libra placement, we'll kind of get more into that. But again, back to the cardinal placements, Libra, Cancer, Aries, and Capricorn here that may be more active for you. There are a bit more kind of challenges there. But, but this can be a time where it's all right, this is, this is time to not just stay in this state of stagnancy, because that's where I think can happen with Libra. Like it's analysis paralysis, and it's just like, instead of just being in that place where we don't do anything, it's like, let's just go and we'll work with the consequences. We'll balance things out in the end there. But yeah, that's basically all I got for you there this week there. Not too bad, but yeah, definitely keep an eye on that, especially kind of let's milk those good days. That Saturday and Sunday. Let's try to let's try to be in as abundant energy as possible here. But actually, give me 1 second. I'll pause one moment. Okay, we're back. But yeah, if you want to, yeah, hopefully this has been helpful for you. But if you want to work with these transits more personally, want to see like how this is coming up in your chart, or like I had mentioned earlier about if you're starting up a new year, if you have your sun in Leo, whatever that may be looking like for you. If you want to do any sort of like electional astrology, down in the description box is a link to book a consultation with me. So that'll directly take you there to go through all the descriptions for you there. You can pick a date and do all that nice stuff there. And then also there is, what else do I have to say? Oh, there is a couple playlists here. One of them is for Celestial News Weekly, and that talks about just what the sun and the rest of the traditional planets are doing, what sign they're in, what aspects they're forming, and how to most practically work with those energies, and what zodiac signs will be most affected by those energies there. And then I have these playlists as well that talk about, that are these different series that are that cover different celestial bodies in different signs in different houses, and I have them all in playlists there, and for whatever your placement is. So definitely go check that out. If you have any requests that you want, feel free to comment in the comment section. I usually get those whenever the next videos happen to come out there. So, but that's all I got for you there. So until next time, stay mindful out there. You keep eyes on that moon. Just a little sidebar there. I saw the moon out here with Venus. I love that combination. And I will get out there and see that moon on the next one. Moon Day.